I recently read episode 13 by diLouie, and while I was reading this book, I kept wondering, how long has this author been stalking me? Surely he has to know an awful lot about me because he managed to put in this book almost every one of the elements I love most in horror. We have a crew of paranormal investigators that are filming a TV show, also a group of scientists carrying out ethically questionable experiments on supernatural phenomena, and an epistolary/found media format to tell the story. And like the cherry on top of a cake, he also included a character that could very well be myself. A scientist that is also a skeptic. Although this book wasn't perfect, it not only entertained me, but it really made me think about my own skepticism, about what it would take for me to change my mind, and how I would react if that were to ever happen. This is Michelle's Melancholia, where we read books to fear and shed a tear. And today we are talking about episode 13 by diLouie and also about ghosts. By the way, I won't spoil any of the plot points, but I will talk about the tone of the book and some of the themes present in it, just so you know. Also, this was the March pick for Amy's Dark Hearts book club. That is Amy from the channel Amy Noel Reads, so make sure to check out her channel if you haven't done so already. And let's start talking about the book. Episode 13 opens up in a mockumentary style, which means it is introduced as if we were going to read a documentary. So it's fiction that's meant to have the look and feel of non-fiction. And by the way, if you want to experience a piece of media that pulls off this style very well, I highly recommend the movie House LLC from 2015. It is so good and so scary, but also let's not get off track. The story revolves around the cast of a TV show called Fade to Black, which is a hit ghost hunting reality TV show. It is led by a married couple, Matt and Claire, where Matt is a believer and Claire is a skeptic. The cast also includes an actress which is meant to be a bit more oblivious or not have so much knowledge about paranormal investigation and just comes along to get some reactions. We have a tech expert that used to be a policeman. And we also have the cameraman, whose task is obviously to capture the best moments. And for episode 13 of the TV show, they will be visiting Foundation House in Virginia. The backstory of Foundation House is quite unique, and I loved that the author went in that direction. So the story is that in the 70s, the house was occupied by the Paranormal Research Foundation, which was a group of mad scientist type researchers carrying out investigations on how people can actually connect to the other side, the paranormal world, the supernatural, whatever you want to call it, and I guess develop their extrasensorial capabilities. And what I love about this concept is that this type of research, although it sounds really outlandish, has actually happened. There is a long history of scientists trying to find a way to do formal research about these unexplainable phenomena. I personally don't see how one can rigorously apply the scientific method to any of these, but maybe I'm just ill-informed. And because I got really curious about this while I was reading the book, I did a little bit of research and found two books that I'd be very interested in reading. The first one is Phenomena, The Secret History of the US Government's Investigations into Extrasensory Perception and Psychokinesis by Annie Jacobsen. And another one is Physics and Psychics, The Occult and the Sciences in Modern Britain by Richard Noakes. If you have any other recommendations, do let me know, but you know that I just love when a work of fiction piques my interest into some topic and makes me want to learn more. But back to the story, these scientists then disappeared without a trace, gone. It is a complete mystery what happened to them. So it is unclear what's actually going on in the house. Did the scientists die and are now haunting this place? Or was there something else in the house already and that thing also haunted the scientists? And this is only the setup for the story in like the first 10% of the book or so. At the beginning, we also get a section where each of the crew members gets to introduce themselves, and I particularly loved when they got to tell their own story and how or why they became interested in ghost hunting. I think some of those backstories were very compelling and definitely gave a lot of depth to the characters. I feel like often when stories have an ensemble cast like this, there is a couple of weak links. You know, characters that seem a little bit unnecessary or boring. But actually, I really liked the whole team in this one. Each one of them felt like a real person, and also they were different enough from each other, so they had a distinct role in the group dynamics, and also they all contributed something of value to the plot. So honestly, that aspect of the writing and storytelling was quite impressive. And of course, as you may have already guessed, my favorite character was Claire, the scientist, but we'll talk more about her later. Pacing-wise, I loved how the story was set up, let's say in the first third of the book. I was hooked. I loved learning about the cast and the characters, and when the first tense moments start to happen, I was super into it. Then I would say in the second third, it definitely dips a little. It just progresses a bit slower, and also I think maybe it wasn't as original. A lot of things that happen I've seen before in other types of haunted house or found footage books and movies. But the last third of the book really picked up. For me, the whole last section really was a treat. I couldn't stop reading, but at the same time, there were certain parts that I would read over and over because I just wanted to really absorb what was going on. Of course, I don't want to discuss any details of the plot because I don't want to spoil this for anyone. But I've talked to a lot of people about this book and it does get a little controversial. There are a lot of mixed feelings about the actual nature of the haunting once this is revealed to the reader. Some people loved it, some people were quite disappointed, some people had in-between feelings, but I think that truly comes down to personal preference and what kind of horror you like and what scares you and all those different factors. I personally liked it. I liked the decisions the author made, but I kind of wish that he had committed more strongly to it. Again, trying to not spoil anything, I felt like once the haunting was revealed, the book got a little philosophical, a little existential, and I think I would have liked for those ideas to be developed better. I just feel like the author could have gone all out, and it was very well done, but it felt a tiny bit restrained for me. I think this really comes back to why Claire was my favorite character. Don't get me wrong, there were some times where she was so annoying and so pretentious, but I think that most of the time she was genuinely being true to herself. Yes, there were several instances where she just came across as a massive killjoy, and I was like, why can't you just let people enjoy their ghosts? But on further reflection, I can understand her frustration at being roped into this show where she's supposedly using science to find ghosts, but she really doesn't believe that she can do it, so it's basically her job to be a killjoy. At some point she says, "I'm actually hurting science since every time an anomaly shows up on our equipment that I can't explain, it's automatically assumed to be a paranormal entity. Anomalies don't mean ghosts. They're simply things I can't explain." She also says, "All the effort, all the gear, if we don't do it right, we'll find nothing. But if we do it right, we could also find nothing. If a spirit isn't there, you can't definitely prove it isn't there. And anything not disproven can be interpreted as proof." And I can 100% relate to this because even though I obviously completely respect people who believe in ghosts and the paranormal. I personally believe that there is always a rational explanation. We just may not have the tools to say exactly what that is. And to be honest, sometimes I do wish I was a believer, but I'm just not. And the same way I just let people be happy believing in what they believe, I can also be happy not believing. Because, as Claire also said, science seems stodgy, but sometimes it delivers a level of awe that is akin to religion. The universe is mysterious and beautiful, with or without a prime mover or underlying truth justifying it. However, I also loved that Claire is not one-dimensional. We actually go on a bit of a roller coaster ride with her character development. At some point, she does start losing some of her objectivity, and while her approach to scientific research is quite humble in the beginning, I'd say that after a while she does start indulging in some big-headed fantasies. I obviously picked out the quotes I liked from her, but at some point she also says and does really dumb things, but that just made the whole thing more fun. I just really liked her because for me she was the most thought-provoking of the whole crew. But I'd be super interested to know if anyone else with a different background found themselves relating more to any of the other characters. Okay, so I only have one major criticism about the book, but at the same time it's such a small detail that I don't know if anyone else noticed. So at the very beginning of the book there is a fake editor's note written by a fake person that has put all of these documents together, and they write, "This book was written for the open-minded with a highly curated but neutral documentarian approach. The narrative is presented without judgment, accepting the authenticity of what is presented on its face value, while leaving it entirely up to the reader to decide whether to believe or not. This involves deciding what to include and just as critically what to leave out." So we actually don't know if there are any documents missing. I mean, I know it's not real, but why would they say they left things out if there were no other documents? What if they completely contradict everything and it's actually not as unbiased as it appears to be? Am I overthinking this? Because obviously this is not real, so maybe it's just me. Anyways, it says, "The result is a book that is a rabbit hole about a rabbit hole." Okay, so I'm definitely in the rabbit hole. "An invitation to explore it yourself while experiencing everything its trailblazers felt and witnessed, and then make up your own mind whether to believe." So with that setup, I actually thought that the whole thing was going to be way more ambiguous, and maybe it would be up to each reader's beliefs and perception and experience to decide what happens. But I definitely think that the haunting was over-explained. But I don't know for sure. Also, let me know if you've read this, what your experience was. Do you think it was ambiguous, or do you think there was a very clear thing that happened? As a very quick conclusion, I obviously loved this book. I read it physically and then immediately after I listened to the audiobook. The audiobook is so fun because it has a full cast narration and it even includes an original song. I think it's also obvious that I've been thinking about this book so much. Like, seriously, I'd even have more things to talk about, but I think this video is already long enough. And finally, do I see the flaws in this book? Yes. But do I care? No. I am still obsessed. If you've read episode 13, please leave me a comment telling me everything that you thought about it. I want to know it all. And if you haven't, let me know if I've tempted you to read this. And I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!